Hello, today we'll be looking at something that's so simple but has the potential to improve your game enormously. We'll be looking at the concept of sphere of influence. Okay, so what is sphere of influence? Put simply, it is a circle around your unit that represents where on the battle map it can move, shoot or charge to. Take this orc boy, he has a movement sphere of 5 inches. This can be increased by forfeiting his attacks and rolling a d6, giving an average result of 3.5 inches. This pushes his sphere to 8.5 inches. He could alternatively move 5 inches, then, if within 12-inch range of another model, attempt a charge. The most likely charge result with 2d6 is 7 inches, so it extends his movement sphere to 12 inches under the right circumstances. Let's not forget he can shoot too. He is armed with his faithful slugger, and that has a range of 12 inches. He can shoot this weapon after a normal move, making his range sphere 17 inches. Now there are two types of influence, current and potential. The current is as described for the orc boy. The potential is the accumulative total of each turn available to the orc boy before the end of the game. As you can see, this aspiring boy could cover 60 inches on average in ideal conditions, or foot slog and shoot up to 25 inches. So why have I wasted your time explaining something so simple that you're probably already aware of? Because it's vital to understand to win a game of 40k. In larger games, a furthest objective marker can be 36 inches away from the closest edge of your deployment. How do you intend on winning this objective? You might choose to ignore it, but you need to have a strategy if you want to take it, and a unit of orc boys on foot isn't the most reliable way of achieving this goal. An Astarte Outrider squad, with turbo boost, now that's viable. You could be on the objective, all going well by turn 2. It's also vital that you understand how this information affects your opponent's choices. Is there any point blasting that unit that will have no influence on any objectives until turn 5? Am I better off repositioning to interfere with the advance of those bikers? So how do you maximise your influence on the battlefield objectives? You can pick fast units, as demonstrated by some of the successful vehicle lists in the GT scenes. It's an effective way of exerting dominance. Remember though that fast units aren't always best used for a blitzkrieg on turn 1. They become more valuable as the turns tick on. Most units by turn 4 have such low potential sphere of influence, they're where they are. A unit of fast attack kept out of trouble until turn 4 can be invaluable to grabbing objectives and bolstering areas on the board. Hand in hand with fast attack are the use of transports. Mechanise your infantry. Transports often don't use up a slot. They can soak up wounds and deposit your slow infantry upfield on objectives that move off to fulfill other battlefield roles, like slowing up those pesky bikers screaming up the table, or breaking up line of sight, or engaging ranged infantry to stop them firing for a turn or two. Psychers can also provide a bit of mobility for your boot-wearing infantry. To jump is a common orc tactic of making a squad of boys appear in the enemy deployment zone, taking undefended objectives or utilising the Here We Go ability to get the 9-inch charge on the unsuspecting back objective holders. Keep a lookout for faction abilities that increase your influence. Necrons, for example, have various dimensional stratagems that allow for fast redeployment. Orcs can warg, that allows advance and charge for a turn. Use checkering to leap across the battlefield. Perhaps not always the most reliable way of making progress, as it requires not only a successful charge, but also surviving the fight to make another charge in your next turn. Although not impossible, it's generally only a viable option for large armoured close combat units. Understand that slow units need careful deployment to influence the battle. Make sure you have a plan for that unit and deploy it somewhere it can have the best chance of executing that plan. Whether it's a suicide mission to soak up some fire, a distraction mission to pull away some enemy units out of position, or a hold the back objective mission. Think about what that unit needs to achieve and deploy it accordingly. Slow units without transport or deep strike-like abilities have very limited uses, especially in the first few turns, unless they are equipped with a ranged weapon. If they have a ranged weapon, they make areas of the battlefield less desirable for the opponent and potentially reduce the enemy's influence by reducing or eliminating models. Pile-in and reconciliation moves can be used to close the distance between yourself and the objectives. They can also be used to reduce your opponent's sphere of influence by holding them in combat or cutting off escape routes. Use them wisely. Don't overlook assault weapon units that can advance and still get some shots off. It's always useful. Remember, it also applies to shooting out of advancing open-topped transports. Slow units do have a use to restrict the spheres of fast units. Units particularly good at this are large units with large bases, units that can block off corridors in the terrain or prevent deep strike by spreading out. They are also great loaded out with heavy weaponry, can effectively make areas of the battle map a no-go zone if firepower is concentrated heavily enough. Keep out of range of charges to prevent your opponent getting an easy move. Also considering offering charges that move the enemy units into more preferable areas of the battle map, away from objectives or into no-go zones. Most importantly, don't allow your opponent to charge onto objectives. Try and resolve all combat outside of the objective zone. This way, should you lose, they don't get an auto take on the objective. Finally, be unpredictable. Easier said than done, this one, but it does work. Every opponent likes to predict a few turns ahead at the most likely possible outcomes. Although everyone has a game plan, until the first snake eyes are rolled, try and keep the opponent guessing. It encourages mistakes. So there you go. I hope you found the content interesting and used some of the information to be more competitive at 40k. Next up in the series is how to take and hold an objective. So please remember to like and subscribe. Fire me a comment if you disagree or agree with anything I've discussed in the video. And remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only law.